watching the Toasted Bagel News. Today's segment on Southeast Asia will include Southeast Asia, such as Indonesia, Vietnam, ooh, I know that one, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, the Philippines, Cambodia, Laos, Burma, Brunei, and Timor-Leste. So, Southeast Asia is known for its unique food like Thai meatballs, its culture like fat Buddhist men, and their traditions like uh, traditional stuff. So, the region goes back a long history to the Neolithic times when humans migrated out of Africa and some set out to Southeast Asia and their islands. So, they traveled there as hunter gatherer societies and spent a while there before they uh, grew rice during the agricultural revolution. They created a new form of rice called twice rice that let the people grow rice twice a year. It created a very large food surplus that created a working class. So, meanwhile, powerful empires began to rise up in India and China, such as the Ming and Song dynasty, and China wanted to spread its influence among its neighboring countries like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. But while those countries and many other Southeast Asian countries would adopt Chinese practices, Vietnam would stay culturally independent, and they did not want to assimilate their culture to the Chinese because they saw Chinese culture as oppressive, and many would lose rights such as women with foot binding and stuff like that. But they did find a few benefits to trading with the Chinese. They got new technologies, and they also used the Chinese language, and their writing system was modeled off of the Chinese writing system. And also, India traded with Southeast Asia, and Indonesia became a very good spice trading empire with European countries like Portugal. So, in the in the age of exploration, the French had colonized Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and they became French Indochina, and they were colonized for the valuable exports of rice and rubber. So the natives were treated very poorly, since many colonizers oppressed the natives living there, and many Vietnamese many Indo-Chinese people lost their land and grew poor, while the French elites grew rich. And after World War II, many European countries were decolonizing, and French Indochina hoped that they would be able to gain independence from France, but France retained the right to rule over them, much to their dismay. So, they began to fight back during the Cold War. So a communist named Ho Chi Minh created his Viet Minh army to fight against the French, and the Americans wanted to help the French because they did not want communism to spread throughout Asia. So, they believed that They believed in the domino theory that if Vietnam became communist, then would Laos and Cambodia become communist as well? What about Burma or the Philippines or Singapore or even India? So, the American forces invaded Vietnam. Vietnam was split north and south, with communist north and anti-communist south. And the south was very unpopular with its government, and the north sent supplies to southern rebels through the Ho Chi Minh Trail running through Laos and Cambodia. And uh, with high American losses, public opinion started to turn against the Vietnam War. So eventually, President Richard Nixon pulled out the American troops, and 2 years later, the communist forces took over the rest of South Vietnam, and that ends and that creates the end of the Vietnam War. These days, Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries are democratic. Some are a little bit communist, but overall they've maintained good diplomatic ties with the United States.
Hello, my name is Carlos from Toasted Bagel News Network, and today I'll talk about the current events of Southeast Asia. Today I've chosen 5 countries from Southeast Asia and ignored the rest. The 5 special countries I've chosen were Indonesia, Brunei, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. In Indonesia, the Indonesian police has spoiled a suspected terrorist cell that had the ability to detonate bombs using Wi-Fi networks. The terrorist organization in India was suspected to have ties with the Islamic State, formerly known as ISIS. The device was planned to use to detonate bombs during the official election day in Indonesia. The pro of this article from the New York Times was that it had sufficient information to inform the public of what happened. The cons about this article, though, is it was published in New York instead of a more local news station. In Brunei, the government has backed down from carrying out executions against homosexuals and those convicted of adultery due to facing lashbacks due to facing boycotts and protests. I can't do this. I lost my train of thought.
I'll cut that out.
Okay. And just focus. Okay. Yeah, please. Okay, I'm just gonna do Brunei all over again. Okay. In Brunei, the government has backed down from carrying out executions against the homosexuals and those convicted of adultery by stoning them to death after facing boycotts and protests. The pro of this article is it was published in Hong Kong, where it was more of a local news station, compared to the last article. The con of this article is that most of the statements are from Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah of Brunei, which is the absolute monarch ruler of Brunei, which could mean that most of his statements could be false. In the Philippines, a military exercise occurred where American soldiers trained Philippine troops to counter terroristic threats from the Islamic State and Chinese aggressive expansion into the South China Sea, which is the neighboring sea of the Philippines, due to their artificial islands or string of islands, which they wanted more control of the area. The pro of this article is that it contained a lot of information about the topic and a lot more background information of any other discussed topics. The con of this article was that it had many personal anecdotes / experiences from the author which could intervene with the article. In Thailand, there was a delay in the elections which caused a lot of confusion and opposition of the current military rulers or the military ruling group. Many suspect that the military party had purposely delayed the elections, which caused a delay and many people to ask for a different form of government. The pro of this article is that it contained quotes to support their allegations or their mentioned topics, but the con of this article is the kind of this article was it was published by CNN, which is notorious for known to publish fake news. In Vietnam, the African swine fever has spread from China into nearby countries, which included Vietnam, which is one of the world's largest producers in pork and swine-related products. The swine flu centralized in China, but eventually spread, causing an outbreak, causing both the death of thousands of pigs and the increase of price of pork and any other pork-related products. The pro about this article is that it had a lot of information about the article, and as well as the cause and effect of the historic event. The con of this article was it mainly focused on Hong Kong and China and sparsely mentioned any current events in Vietnam. Oof.
Hello everyone, I am Gordon Ramsay, and this is...
I'm Elma.
And today we are going to make you all Thai meatballs. So the ingredients that we have here are pork, eggs, oil spray, sugar, Thai sauce, soy sauce, panko breadcrumbs, cilantro, Thai chilies, garlic, ginger, and lemons, which we will turn into lemon zest, and a lime. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put all the pork, the ground pork, into the bowl. And then you're going to want to get 6 garlics. We already have 3 there. So you're going to want to crush the garlic and basically peel the garlic until you get a singular clove. You can chop off the
ends to make it easier.
Yeah. And then what you're going to... So now you're going to want to put 2 eggs into your mix. So you're going to like crack it against the counter. I put 2 eggs into the container, and then you're going to put it into the mix. And then next, you're going to want to put...
Before starting anything, you want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 430 degrees about 15 minutes, or just let it sit there, and then while you're mincing, getting your ingredients ready, it'll start heating up.
So now you're going to want to put 2 eggs into your mix. So you're going to like crack it against the counter. I put 2 eggs into the container, and then you're going to put it into the mix. And then next, you're going to want to put... Next, you're going to want to put in your garlic. So you put all of your garlic into the mix. And then next, you're going to want to put in all of your cilantro. And then, once you got, after that, you're going to want to put in 1.5 cups of panko breadcrumbs, all on top of that. And then you're going to want to put your sugar. You can put any kind of sugar all across, 2 teaspoons of any kind of sugar on top of your mix. All right, so now what you're going to want to do is you're going to take 6 Thai chilies, remove the seeds, and finely chop them like I did here. So to remove the seeds from the chili, you cut the top off and you slice finely down the middle. And you basically reach into the center and grab out and just basically scoop out all the seeds until there's none left.
I've made the meatballs. As we're going to spray them with oil, our nice little pan boy, and we're just gonna. That mother ducker looks great. Looks delicious.
Alrighty then. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it in the oven. So you got the meatballs, and then you're going to just put them nicely
Don't burn your hands.
right there. And then leave them to go for 25 minutes. So now that the meatballs are done, you're going to want to open the oven and then take the meatballs out of the rack with oven mitts. These look very, very good. You guys will be consuming this. We also made another rack of meatballs.
Now that the meatballs are done, you can eat them. Did you know you can eat the food you cook? Me neither. Oh, cool! It's a meatball. Oh, that smells good. Ooh. I don't know about you, but I'm a fan of pork. It's good.
I burned my eye out.
I'm not gonna chug it all in because I'm going to die. Ooh. I like that. I hope you guys like it.